Welcome to the Imposter Syndrome Club. My name is Jessamy G. I am joined, as always, by my beautiful co-host, Miss Alice Edie.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, I'm so happy to have just a fucking chat episode.
I know, it feels like forever. Like, it really feels like forever. We've been busy little bees.
I know, that's my like low-key like, wow, look at us, like corporate cosmopolitan ladies of the
Not
world.
to show off, but we've been busy.
Oh, we don't use, I don't know. I think we've spoken about this before, but like not using busy as a brag because it fucking isn't.
Yeah. Actually, that's a major thing that's been, I think I might have even written it down at the end of last year / start of this year as like my like goal vision for the year is like when someone asks, how are you? That busy is not the response.
Yeah.
To like both to not be crazy busy, but to also not to frame it in that way.
Yeah. It's also not really a feeling. And I feel like if someone's like, how are you? That's what are you?
Well, yes and no. I think we've spoken about this before, but it sort of is because you can have a lot on. It depends what you mean by it. You know what I mean? So like I think historically when I've said it, I am talking about like a feeling and mindset, not like I have a lot of things in my diary. So it's basically saying like I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, okay.
But the like shorthand for that is busy.
This is something it's going to be, I know we've spoken about it before and like spoiler alert, it's going to be something we speak about again because I think like it just is an ongoing fucking negotiation.
Yeah.
But I want space. That was the word for this year. And I think I'm needing a bit of a reset and reconnecting with that idea of creating spacious days because it's really easy to just become that hamster again. And you're like, well, it's when I notice it when I use the word just, I'm like, oh, I literally heard myself being like, oh, I just have to get through this weekend. And I was like, I had the most amazing weekend planned.
Yeah.
I'm like, how the fuck am I talking about a plan I'm excited about, but I'm speaking about it like it's a chore? That's on me. I'm like, check yourself.
I think we're in very similar places right now, Alice. And I remember that on a podcast about burnout on Glennon Doyle's podcast, Imposter Syndrome Club, bingo!
Future guest, Glennon Doyle.
Imaginary friend, Glennon Doyle. But when you think about burnout, there are things that seem obvious, like obvious signifiers of that. But one that I think I hadn't really thought about is that when you feel the same about everything, whether it's a birthday celebration or taking out the bins or picking your kid up from school or going to work or like doing an exciting presentation, like they all feel weighted the same.
Yes, like they all feel like a chore. You're like, oh, going for a picnic with my friends because I'm like, oh God, I've got to like fucking buy some hummus and get a blanket. And you're like, that shouldn't feel
exactly
like homework.
Exactly. When everything becomes just an item on your to-do list, whether it's something that, you know, should feed you energy-wise or not, that's a red flag that
that is so good.
Burnt out.
When I say good, that's not good to feel that way, but it's a really good little metric to have because it's such an easy one to pay attention to.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And I've definitely noticed myself slipping into that in the last little while because there's been a lot of like and genuinely exciting things happening, which has been great. And I think in the moment I have been able to experience them, like meet them with excitement, which is great. But I can feel it slipping into that and feeling a need for editing in my life because I don't know if you know this about me, Alice, but I get a lot of ideas.
Well, this is news to me.
I get a lot of ideas and I like newness. You know, I like new things. I like the start of things. But when you sow too many seeds and then too many of them sprout at the same time, then you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't expecting this, and then it becomes a little bit tricky to navigate. So I've been thinking about this the last couple of days around what would I ultimately want my life to look like if it wasn't like, take out any like shoulds or even money, right? I mean, let's be honest. If money was taken out of it, I wouldn't do shit. Like, I'd be on a beach. I'd be on a beach having a lovely time. But like what would I want that to look like? And I actually find that exercise really hard. Like, there's not a clear, I think some people have a very clear vision of that. Like, you know, I think you know, like Dan working in video production and stuff, like he would love to work on movies, right? Like he's got a very clear sort of vision of like the ultimate, like if he woke up tomorrow in his perfect life, I think he's pretty, and you know, and obviously things change over time or whatever, but at least for the moment, he's got a pretty clear vision of like what ultimate Dan would look like.
Dan. I know what you mean though, that like, having a clear picture. I'm like, at least if you've got something to aim for, like you say, it can change, but there's a thing that you're like, this is what best case scenario looks like.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm just not, and I think it's an incredibly like privileged and lovely position to be in, where it's not like I've got a bunch of things that I really like doing to do. So it's not like, oh, like I'm really hating my work or hating my job. It's just that my attention is being a bit too diffused currently. And then it's finding the balance between like for me, I think doing multiple things is good. I think that's just part of my personality and something that I quite like, because it allows me to maintain energy for one thing, to be able to move between them. But there is a limit to that. So like that's cool for like doing, you know, 2 or 3 things, but when that is like 6 things or whatever, and then how do you, these thoughts are forming out of my mouth at the moment.
I love that, the image of the garden where you've thrown out a lot of seeds and then more sprout than you think we're gonna sprout. And then it's also it's like a weird feeling, because it's also, I think for me at least, when I do that, I go through spates of doing that. Like we have totally different ways of working. And I think for me, I like less options, and I like feeling like I can focus on one thing. So for me, I'm always trying to be okay with the fact that I've got like 3 different kind of jobs basically at any given time, like 3 careers that are just happening at once. And I constantly find myself wanting it to just be one, and then having to be like, no, this is like, find comfort with this being fluid, because this is actually what life is going to look like. So find the best way to do that and like find comfort in that space. So we come at it from such a different kind of angle. But to get to that, to the garden metaphor, like for me, I often find with those things, I throw out all the seeds, and then if too many sprout, I feel guilt around closing down some of the options, because I'm like, but I started this.
Yeah. No one made me sow those seeds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a super weird comparison, and I think it's going to sound like really douchebaggy. So
always said that about you.
Yeah, exactly. Dan, please potentially edit this. But that's how I felt arriving in Australia, having no friends, and then actively just seeking so many different like activities, hobbies, ways of meeting people.
Yeah.
And it's you're touching so many bases to find what is or isn't going to work, and you don't fucking know. So you're trying and trying and trying, and it takes time. So for the first like 6 months, you have so much outward bound energy to go do a million things and meet a million new people, and then after that 6 months, like those things start picking up momentum. But actually, only some of those people are people that you're really feeling a real spark with and that you want a friendship with. And others are just like lovely people, but you're like, nah, it's like, it's also fine. We don't have, you know what? Kidding. We don't have to do this.
Who didn't make the cut? Go on, tell me. We can bleep it out. No, but I
you know what I mean? You're like, I don't, and that's the gift.
I don't think that makes you sound like a douchebag at all. I remember you saying to me very early on, after we met, I think when we were just starting to like fall in love. that you had to kiss a lot of frogs.
And you don't know,
And
though.
you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And it's so hard to like being in a like I've never done it. Like I've never packed up my whole life and moved, not permanently, to another place when everything is new. Like working out like where is the area you want to be in, like where are your people, and in order, like you have to do that sort of like what's the word I'm looking for?
You're like throwing the seeds out. You're
Yeah,
like
throwing the seeds out. There's a oh God,
words.
What's happening? Words. Have I shown you this? I started writing down because I've been finding recently that there are certain words that I forget all the time and it drives me bonkers. And it actually became a bit of like an anxiety thing where I would worry about forgetting words and then that would like cause this anxiety that would make me forget words.
Oh, because your brain's so caught up in worrying about forgetting the word that it's not finding the word.
Exactly. And apparently this is where like a lot of stuttering issues come from, is that like you worry about getting the word out and you're not relaxed, and that's what causes the stutter. And I'm not a doctor or a speech pathologist, but I imagine it's a similar kind of thing, that it's if I'm just relaxed, words come out perfectly. But when I'm worried, like recording a podcast, for example, or doing a panel discussion or whatever, if I start to worry about forgetting words, then I will indeed forget the words. So I wrote down somewhere in this book.
This is so
if I can find it. So
fucking
this is going to be awesome for people who are listening. Yeah, here we go. Words that I forget.
Oh my God.
And I think just even the act of writing them down is really helpful. Like it's not like I'm sitting there like at the start of every day, I'm like, okay, here are the words that I forget.
Use these words in a sentence today.
I wonder what it says about me as well. Do you want to know what the words are?
So much. And that's like, not to add a layer of like pop psychology on top of it, but I'm like, is there a theme to the words?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll read them out and you can tell me, because I've actually not really thought about it because I've just been adding to it as they come up.
I love this. Let's all psychoanalyze Jessamy's deepest insecurities.
I mean, let's be honest, that's pretty much what this podcast is. Okay, so number 1, disproportionate. Number 2, suffocating. Number 3, comfort. Number 4, overestimate. Number 5, integrity. Number 6, ambitious. And number 7, superficial.
Wow.
And so the interesting thing, right, there's something like comfort. It's not like it's not a hard word. It's just something that would find myself multiple times reaching for and just couldn't find it for some reason.
You're trying to describe that feeling and you're like, it's a thing like, feeling nice. I want to feel this thing makes me feel nice and good. And like you describe around it, you have all the words kind of orbiting that particular texture, that exact feeling.
And I don't know why it's these
or suffocating.
Words. Yeah.
Also just the fact that you've needed that word, because I don't know when the last time I've needed to take that word out of the archive and like use it.
Well, we have different hobbies. I can tell you exactly how it's come up. Was talking about, well, this is the one example I can remember, and I imagine others would be similar to this. Talking about the feeling of going to a private school where you had to wear a very specific uniform, and the feeling of that being suffocating, and that I wasn't able to express myself in the way that comes most naturally to me, which is through clothing and hair and that sort of stuff. I just I know that conversation has come up at least a couple of times, and that's the word I was reaching for. And again, like I would describe around it. I just couldn't, like that's the one that I wanted and I couldn't find it in the moment. And then I think what happens, again, this is all just me guessing.
Fuck it. This is the time and place for that.
It's like when you bite your cheek and then you bite it again and again. Yeah. I think it's like that. Like if I lose it once, then it will happen again and again.
Yeah, that makes I know so my ex-husband Clayton, who has a speech impediment, like he would describe almost exactly that, like with words that he would get stuck on, and a lot of them also were, it becomes bigger than the word itself. It's about like what that word means emotionally in context. So for him, the hardest word to say was his name, because also that's the moment that there's the most pressure. Like you're saying your name, like you don't say your name to your friends. Your friends know your name.
Yeah.
So your name is always one of the first things that you say meeting a stranger. And it's also like when they are kind of like their focus is laser beamed onto you because you're an unknown quantity and you're meeting them, right? So like it was his name. And then a while back, we were chatting about this, and he was like, he used to have it with my name too. And then I had this moment, I think he could see on my face that I kind of was like, the thoughts running through my head really quickly were like, oh God, was it that towards the end of the relationship, I was this like really negative thing in his life that he was feeling anxiety around, like speaking about me. And like, I think he could see my whole face fall. And then he just goes, no, but like Maggie too. And, and for anyone listening, like Maggie's our dog who literally is the love of Clayton's life. So I was like, okay, this is not, it's like, it's an anxiety, but it's not necessarily like an anxiety that is tethered to like trauma. It's just like, I think if there's an extreme amount of emotion attached to certain anchor words, it just becomes harder.
Look at these words again and see. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
was one of them overestimate?
Overestimate, yeah.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. Because like none of these make me feel like I don't look at those words. I'm like, yeah, these are words that make me.
I love that you wrote them down.
What a nerd, right?
It's so cute.
It's so helpful.
It's great.
Yeah.
I like the idea that you like they're written down, and then if you need them in a conversation, if you like pull the wrong one. You're like, I suffocated the amount of time I'd have available for this project.
I'm just very superficial. Anyway, there you go.
Oh,
that's a thing, new thing in my life. It's actually not new. It's, you know what's weird with it is that I feel like I've gone in and out of this as a feature in my life for years, and it will be present for a bit and then it'll go away, and it'll be present for a bit and then it'll go away.
And the more, like you say with the cheek biting thing, the more you're noticing it, that makes it a presence in that moment. This is, of course, a tangent, but I've been trying to learn a bit of French over the past year and a bit because my partner's French, and also because it's just cool to use your brain and learn stuff. It feels like brain gym. It's really satisfying. And the one thing that I've noticed that's really helpful for learning vocabulary is using songs, because if you're using an app, it's like the language is so fucking boring. As a beginner, what you're getting is so boring, and you know, to use your word, suffocating. It's that feeling of not being able to express yourself because the tools you have are all so basic and boring. Like, the air conditioner is not working.
Yeah. Do you know where the library is?
Yeah, it's exactly that. But if you go to music.
Où est la bibliothèque?
Nailed it. Right. Well, getting ready for our live first birthday show, which is going to be in French. But yeah, it's so not inspiring to learn language like that. But then in music, especially in song lyrics where people are using language metaphorically, there's such a rich pool of words. So it'll be stuff that's way more poetic, that's not as literal. So to your point about, again, I'm on and on about the suffocating, but when you were using that word in the example, you weren't using it to literally describe the experience of not being able to breathe.
Right.
You were using it to describe the feeling of not being able to express yourself. So it's words like that where like shadows or flood, words that you can use and so you often don't use literally, but they've got so many more metaphoric applications, and it just feels like you can express so much better with them. So it's like a combo now of like, I'll do the lessons on the app that are teaching the basic communication stuff, and then I'll find a song that's really pretty, print out the lyrics, Google all of them, and then just have this strangely poetic, like every now and then, like this, like completely, like inappropriately floral metaphor will come out of my. Where is the library? Also, I feel a deep loneliness because the floods of my soul, the riverbanks of my soul have flooded. Everyone's like, what the fuck? Like, who is this person? Is she okay?
Have you come across any metaphors that don't exist in English that are like new ways of using words you haven't heard before?
I'm not good at thinking of stuff like that. I'm not good at like answering questions like that straight off the bat because my brain doesn't archive stuff that way.
Yeah.
Nothing jumps to mind, but I'll put a little bookmark in there and let you know if any cool ones pop out.
I have heard that this is like one of the best ways you can learn language. So say you're like really into skateboarding, to just like buy a bunch of French skate magazines, watch a bunch of French skating movies, whatever, because you understand the context and the world within which it lives. So that's one thing that you're like more likely to pick up on what they're saying because you understand that's so world.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then of course, like, and probably most importantly, you're interested.
Yeah.
So you have drive to learn what they're saying because it's something that is of interest to you rather than, like getting the textbooks and learning where the fucking library is.
Yeah. That is of interest to me though. Just okay. But yes, the supermarket is, yeah, that's a great one.
My high school French teacher used to teach us to conjugate verbs in songs. She would like rewrite the words for like Ricky Martin songs and stuff and sing it. And I still remember it now. Yeah.
Our high school French teacher was amazing. She was this ex-theatre actress. I was like theatre person, actor. And she was just so dramatic. And when she was having a day where she could not deal with a bunch of 15-year-old bitches, basically, she was like, fuck this shit. She would just print out she'd photocopy all the pages to the Les Mis songbook and she just put the CD on and then we all sang along to Les Mis.
I think you told me this before. That's so good.
It was so fun. I mean, I think she was just like, let this end. Make it stop.
So are you speaking French when you're out with French people?
I'm trying and they're amazing. They're so, so supportive. And it's that weird thing of I'm trying to not feel self-conscious when they do because that's the only way I'm going to learn.
Yeah.
But it does feel you're asking people to intentionally kind of slow down the cadence of a whole conversation to keep up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, well, that is how we learn and they're so amazing and they'll slow down and make bigger spaces between the words and I'll say something and I literally just sound like a baby, but then just get so everyone's like, way, yeah, like a round of applause. And you're like, I literally said, my drink is on the table. You have a nice face. Like, it's so basic. But yeah, it's very beautiful.
And good on you for like I would feel incredibly self-conscious, but you're right. Like that is the other way that you learn, right, is to just be immersed. Like, like if you had to move to France and just like live there, you would just have to like suck it up and learn, right? Yeah. And you have this like pretty cool opportunity with a whole group of French speaking people to be able to do that. But I would be even if it wasn't like in normal conversation, say I was like, hey, like, you know, these 4 friends, would you like come and just sit with me for an hour so we can talk in French? Like that, even if that was the activity, right? I think I would be so self-conscious about like sounding like a baby because you don't know how you sound to them, but it's such a fucking cool opportunity.
And also the thing that I keep thinking, I'm like, well, that's my ego, right? Like that's me kind of feeling self-conscious around it. And I'm like, how fucking firstly amazing to have people that are like so supportive and so generous with time and like wanting to help is firstly amazing. So don't take that for granted. And secondly, I'm like, every single one of these people who would be helping has moved from France to an English-speaking country and learned a language that wasn't their first language. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, what an incredible thing that every single person here has done. I feel like I'm like, the least I could fucking do is show the respect for that work that they've done by being like, yeah, cool. I want to meet you halfway. Like, I want to also do that and like be able to, you know, because that feeling of often I'll like notice that there might be 8 people in a conversation. The conversation's happening in English. There's one English person in that circle. Yeah. And it just, it feels, I don't know, almost, like a respect thing to be like, no, like, like I want to show that this matters to me. And
Yeah.
also it's just fucking fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're completely right. Like there's no world in which the people on the other side of that are like, oh, did you hear Alice? What a dickhead. It's the same thing when you travel, right? And like so like I'll always make at least some effort to try and speak to people, like, you know, when you're ordering food or whatever at shops, even if you're in a place that's where everyone kind of speaks English anyway, I think it's respectful to at least try. And what will usually happen is I'll say my like word that I've learned in German or French or whatever to order a coffee, and they'll be like, okay, just speak back to me in English, because obviously I'm terrible. But I think making the effort is important. But I get so nervous about doing that. But then it's like, it's completely an ego thing, because the other way around, if I was working in a cafe in Melbourne and someone came up with a strong accent that's obviously like just stringing the words together, there's no part of me that would have any negative feelings about that in any way.
Also, there's weird layers where there's anxiety around getting it wrong, but then getting self-conscious around trying to get it right in a way. I think English-speaking people have this massive complex around trying too hard to have a French accent and sounding pretentious.
Yeah.
But that's just exactly. If it was reversed, you wouldn't have someone trying to speak their second language, English, and then you're like judging their accent.
Yeah, of course not. And I mean, look, it all comes back to the thing we talk about in this podcast so much, is that the vulnerability that comes with trying. I think that's essentially what it is. You know, like if I never tried, I'll never know, and that's fine. But I think that's essentially just another version of that. Like trying is vulnerable.
Tell me about your marathon running.
No.
Cool. What else have you been? Tell me about other things that are happening. I feel like
I'll tell you why I said no is because I've fallen incredibly behind on my training schedule. So at the start of the year, so I've run two marathons previously, one maybe 5 or 6 years ago and one the year before last. The first one was in the fucking desert, and don't recommend. I mean, it was amazing, but it was like on sand. I'm a fucking idiot. But it was incredible. And then the Melbourne Marathon the year before last, which was cool because like it's a thing that Dan and I did together during lockdowns, was trained for this marathon. We actually did we made our own route and attempted one, and then poor Dan's legs just seized up. Oh, it was so awful. He was fine, but just like I've not seen legs like buckle from cramps like that. Like he couldn't even walk, and we were so close to finishing, but there was just no he couldn't even walk to finish it. Do you know what I mean?
Is that something that has a warning? Did it start and get worse, or just he was fine and then suddenly his legs just kind of crumpled under him?
Yeah, no, the fall, but like it started and then got worse. It's a dehydration thing, I think, because he sweats a lot, so he loses a lot of liquid. What else?
Suffocation.
Hydration.
Overestimate.
Like loses a lot of liquid doesn't sound like the right.
That's my husband
losing
liquids again.
Anyway, why am I talking about this? Marathons. Oh yeah, so at the start of this year, I can tell you exactly when it was. It was the day after I had decided to eat 3 ice creams for dinner instead of dinner. And I was like, maybe I need a goal. Maybe I need something to work towards. And the training portion of it is something I've really enjoyed in the past as well. It's just like anything, like having a goal and working towards it is satisfying. So I started out strong, which I did, but it was for a pretty short period of time, like a couple of weeks. And then there was just stuff on, and the further along you get in the training schedule, of course, the more time it takes, particularly for the long run, right? So you'll do like some smaller runs during the week and then one long run, which builds up in kilometers every week.
What is a long run? Like what is long?
Well, so yesterday I did 18 Ks. So a marathon is, and this is like
fuck. I would honestly complain if I had to drive 18 Ks. I'd be like, nah, I don't. There's nothing I care that much. I'm like, what's 18 Ks away? Like Sydney?
But that's not even half.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, and I should be running more than that by now, but because I missed a bunch of weeks in between. Anyway, so I did a little like recalibration of stuff yesterday. It just means I'll have to have bigger jumps between. So I think next week I'll be doing like 22 or something. Whereas like if I'd followed it properly, I probably would have only been jumping by like 2 Ks every week.
Yeah, okay. So the increments are going to get bigger because you've got to keep the tangent of the
yeah, which is okay. I mean, because I'm not starting from zero essentially, so it's kind of okay. But yeah, so we like, tell me about your marathon. I'm like, well, it hasn't really been happening until yesterday, but I think I've caught it just in time where I can still sort of catch up and make it happen. But it's it is interesting because I feel like it's not kind of giving me the thing that I want from it, which is because I haven't been doing it properly. So hopefully now with it like a little bit more focus, I'll be able to do it. But this is also what I mean in terms of like what do I edit? Like things like this are part of it as well. Like, you know, there's all the different work things, but then there's like, I also want to like run a marathon, but I also want, like, I haven't been to a dance class in a million years until last week. And I was like, I fucking love this. This needs to be at the top of my list. It makes me so happy. But then it's like, what comes off the list? And what's more important? Like, you know, can a work thing come off the list? Well, like maybe if like that's a thing that's not, if there are other things that would make my life heaps better, but then it's like, oh, well, you still have a mortgage and shit. Like, all the work things can't come off the list.
I think also this is very much on my mind lately as well, because not all of these things are weighted equally. So if it's a case of take work out of the picture, just say for argument's sake, I have 10 recreation hours available for this week. What that means is I could do 10 activities, 1 hour each, or 2 activities for 5 hours, or 5 activities for 2 hours. Like, so, and there's no right or wrong way to distribute that, but different activities have different points at which they deliver the return on that time. So for example, I'm like, reading my book, I could do for an hour a week and that's cool, or I could do for 5 hours a week. Those are both great. I'm not going to get better at reading. Like, I'll just enjoy those hours and that'll be cool. Same for watching TV.
Yeah.
But for something like bouldering, as we know, I'm an avid boulderer, which I love it. I really enjoy it. But at the moment, I have time to go once a week, maybe more realistically, once every 2 weeks. So it's this Groundhog Day scenario of having a great time. My arms get exhausted really soon. I don't have the upper body strength I need to actually get better. And it doesn't matter about being good at it, but like enjoying it because I can hold my own more. So then it gets to a point where it's like, well, are you going to carve out 1 hour a week for that and never make any progress? And that hour it just could be so much more fun if you made that a 5 hour a week or a 4 hour a week thing and cut out something else. But like what?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that same thing is relevant, at least for me at the moment, and it's been what I've been thinking about for both work and recreation, is that like the time investment to be able to do like work to the quality that I expect from myself, and recreation-wise, again, like it's not like you have to be the best, like you're not going to the like state championships for bouldering, but it is more enjoyable if you have the strength. If you learn more of the skills, then you can do more stuff. So like being like quote unquote better at it is helpful for your enjoyment.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not in a competitive way or like a needing to feel good or achievement blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly. So then, yeah, editing. I think editing is my theme for this week. Month? I don't know. I'm just very fucking aware that I need to do some of it, but I don't know what.
I think, again, kind of looping back to where we started on this incredibly free-ranging, unstructured conversation, you speaking about not having a picture of that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm feeling at the moment. I'm like, okay, cool. I've got this. I'm like, the way that I've spent the last 2 months is not sustainable. Work-wise, friendship-wise, activity-wise, all of it. I'm like, there's no way that this all fits in and keeps running. And I feel like I'm getting this like cumulative hangover of just wanting to sleep for 24 hours. But that wouldn't even make up the sleep debt. That's just the interest on all the sleep that I've lost over that time. I'm like just paying the interest rate on my exhaustion and not actually knocking it down or getting any of that kind of rest. And I don't mean, I don't know. I still think that there's part of me that has this immature embarrassment around like needing time off. I'm like, no, but that's like not cool and fun. That's like really boring.
Yeah.
But
I hear you on that.
For sure. Need it. But I don't know what that looks like. I'm like, what does, if I was getting it right, what would that look like? I haven't got a clue. Like, I don't know really what I'm aiming for.
Cool. Well, we're fucked.
Who's getting it right? Maybe no one. Is everyone just feeling this way? Is it making it worse because I'm imagining that people are getting it right somewhere and I'm not one of those people? I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I don't, like, there's no answer. There's no like, we've done it. We've solved it, like we've spoken about a million times before, because it continues to change. Also, like, I think I have very high expectations of myself, which can be detrimental. But I think because of that, I also have high expectations that I can live a life of balance and calm and happiness if that's something that I want for myself. If I've been able to achieve other shit, why shouldn't I be able to achieve that also? Which is probably an unhealthy way of framing it, but it might be the thing that you know enables the chemistry of my brain to be able to achieve it. I had another point, but it's gone now. Doesn't matter.
Nah, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's not like this is being recorded and distributed to thousands of people.
They know me by now. They get it.
You guys.
But yeah, like, I mean, it's not like bad stuff. I think the other thing that I've come to realize in recent years is the detrimental effect that exhaustion has on creativity. And that feels awful. Like, talk about suffocating, to feel like I have no ideas.
Yeah. Sucks.
For me is like, that's a horrible feeling. And I know that happens when I run myself down.
I'm sure I've said this to you before about like the udder. It's when I feel like udders. So like
I'm trying to
Jessamy's face. Yeah, you tell me what you think I'm about to say. I think you.
Okay, hang on. Say you feel like udders.
Yeah. Also, like just say the word udders again. It's real udders. Weird. It's never.
Very, very quick sidebar. Did I ever tell you about the time that we were playing Pictionary? So, okay, sorry, just like very, very, very quick sidestep. So in my household, right, myself, my sister, my mum, my dad, me, Julia and mum, all artistically inclined people who could draw. Dad, absolutely, like, not at all.
I love.
He's creative in other ways, but cannot draw for shit. Sorry, Dad, love you, but you know this. It's fine. So we would often play Pictionary as a family. And because Pictionary is mainly about like connection and communication, if mum and dad were together, they would often win, even with dad's terrible drawing ability, just because they like got each other's brains so well. Yeah.
Just so beautiful. Yeah.
But he once drew, I'll recreate this for you and post it to the show notes or whatever. But he was trying to draw a cow, and he drew essentially, like, imagine how like a child would draw a cow, like a circle for the body and a circle for the head. and then he tried to draw an udder, but he just drew a pair of boobs. You're like, yeah, this is the things that the milk come from, right?
Did he draw the boobs though, the cow boobs, in the nether regions of the cow? Yes. So they were human boobs, but like that is so disturbing.
It was, and it's probably still at his house somewhere because I took it and like ran away with it and like hid it somewhere in my room. I'm like, I must keep this forever and ever and ever.
There is nothing like, I feel like there are some bad drawings that people have made. Like, as someone who can draw, and I say that with confidence, I'm like, there's literally 10 million other things that I'm shit at. But like, as someone who can draw comfortably, I don't think that people who can't draw appreciate how much better it is. Sometimes like a bad drawing is fucking magical.
Yeah.
I'll never forget my friend Elnie in high school, who's still one of my closest friends and is so smart, so driven, the most like powerful fucking human force of nature, cannot fucking draw for shit, like cannot draw for shit. And she had to draw a dog for like just a little note of a dog, whatever. And I looked across and she gave it a beak. What even is that? She's like, oh, like defense, like, you know I can't draw. And I'm like, but that's not even, like, have you seen dogs? Like, I don't think this is a drawing issue.
I love it so much. And I can sort of remember as well, like, you know, like being younger and stuff, that it's that the space between like what you picture in your head and what comes out your hand. And also like you obviously, you know, like you can recognize a dog and be like, dog.
Yeah.
But to have to try and bring one up in your mind and then replicate that on the like, it is really, really hard if it's not something you do every day. But babe, a beak?
Yeah. And it's even speaking about it, like I can see it in my mind. I'm like, I've seen a million drawings. I'm like, I've been to fucking art school. I've seen so many drawings in my life, and 99.9% of them immediately forgotten. But that it's just was so magical.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Like, this exists now. This thing did not exist. Your brain and your hand made it, and now it's like, now that's just a thing in the world.
It's cool.
And it's the best.
Have you seen those things where like parents collaborate with their kids on drawing things? Like take their drawings and sort of render them in a way where it's like, imagine if a dog did have a beak.
Yes, yeah. If it was like a real,
gorgeous.
like if it was a realistic.
Yes.
If it was more realistic than we realized kind of thing.
Yeah.
I love
exactly.
it.
It's so fun. It's like creating these like magical worlds. Actually, that's something I want to come back to, but let's do your udder first. So that is something I didn't think I would say to you today.
Let's do my udder.
Your udder first.
Yes, please.
I'm utterly excited.
Oh my God, I was like, one of us is going to go the udder pun.
Yeah. Speaking of Dad, he'll be very proud of that one. Okay. So you feel like
an udder.
So is it in like you just feel like you're being like sort of squeezed and like taken from and taken from, and then
like milked out.
Yeah.
But without the kind of rest and care and putting anything in. I'm like, there's at some point like there's just nothing left in there. Yeah. Like the milk is gone.
Yeah.
And I'm just a 5'5" udder.
Yeah.
Empty. Flaccid udder.
Yeah. And you don't get to enjoy the fruits of that either. It's not like you're drinking your own milk. Have I pushed this metaphor into a weird, dark place?
You know what? It's a thing that I always want to ask people that have had babies and don't. But I'm like, dude.
Oh, I would try it 100%.
I also would try it. I mean, I don't know though. I'm scared to. I would try it 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't sit there like putting it in my coffee, but I would want to. I'd want to know what it tastes like.
Would you want your partner to try it?
I wouldn't want him to, but if he was curious, I wouldn't have any problem with it.
I think I would be offended if he or she didn't want to. I'd be like, just. I don't know. Fuck.
What's so disgusting about my milk,
exactly.
huh? No, I don't think I'd be offended if I didn't want to.
Okay,
it is a bit weird.
Okay,
but knowing Dan, he would I reckon curiosity would get the better of him and he would want to try.
He's 100. He needs to edit. He's going to be like, snip that bit out. Knowing Dan, he'd be all over that sweet, sweet human milk.
I just mean in the sense that he's a very curious person.
Yeah. No.
Right.
Anyway, wow, that took a turn.
Utterly, what was the thing?
Magical landscapes.
Creating worlds. This is something. So, you will love this, Alice. Have you ever watched the Netflix series Movies That Made Us?
No.
I think you would really enjoy it. So they sort of like take a deep dive into various movies like Jurassic Park or whatever, like classic movies, and sort of tell you a bit of the story behind it, and like these movies that were sort of classics and either impacted cinema or
that sounds amazing.
It's great. And obviously Dan loves it. And last night we watched one on Elf, our favorite Christmas movie. Which was, you should watch it. It was super interesting and obviously adorable, and the story is actually incredibly sweet. And there are a lot of things I didn't realize about it, that it was sort of, its genesis was really with people who were relatively unknown, and that actually when they booked Will Ferrell to star in it, he wasn't really so much of a big star at the time when they first got him in. Anyway, this is all inconsequential to the actual story. But seeing how they created, because they've got those like moments of stop motion in it where he's in the North Pole and stuff, and watching how they created this in a like an ice rink, and making the actual, like, I didn't realize, I don't think, that a lot of it was stop motion. Like they had actual figurines doing stuff, and they didn't want to use any CGI because they didn't want it to date. Like, you look at CGI stuff like that's like 20 years old now, and it feels dated.
That's so true.
So a lot of the where he's in the North Pole, for those of you who are not lucky enough to have seen Elf yet.
Yet it's like 20 years old.
Hey, we hadn't seen it till a couple of years ago. So there's Buddy who has been raised as an elf, but he's actually a human. So he's like human size in an elf world. But the way they did it, and I'm going to forget the word they used for it, but it's forced perspective, because they didn't want to use any CGI. So the way they shot it, they would have obviously they're all human sized.
They're not real Christmas elves.
Spoiler, they're not actual elves. So have them sit like a few meters behind and set up the camera in a way so that the perspective, it would make it look like they were sitting next to each other. Anyway, I'm just watching all of this with my like mouth open, like how magic it is to be able to create worlds in that way. And I can remember when I was a little kid feeling so connected to the ability to do that. I think particularly as someone who's always like drawing and making things, like feeling like when I would draw something on a page, it then felt real to me, like drawing characters and worlds and stuff. It's like as soon as they left my brain through my hand onto that page, they became real to me. And I got the feeling of excitement and wonder that I created for myself was something I've not really been able to tap back into often as an adult. And I know that some people can, like particularly like musician friends I know talk about that a lot. And I think if you're creating, like the drawing that I do is mainly like it's a service. It's not a creative expression for me. So that's a different thing as well. And talking about this, like, like, well, what is my vision if I need to do some editing in my life? Like, what would ultimate Jessamy look like? I'm like, maybe this is a thing. Like, it's not the answer, but maybe I feel like it's something that I need to consider. Like, how could I get myself back to that feeling of creating worlds?
Yeah. Oh, I love this. Something, just what that makes me think of. So I had the exact same thing when I was a kid, and I used to get anxiety around throwing away paper where I'd drawn characters or
Same.
anything on because they were real and I know when you say that, I'm like, I know exactly, they were like alive outside of me.
Yes.
And I also used to get a thing where I would cry if I messed up the drawing.
Oh my
because
God,
I was like, oh my
same.
God, I'm so sorry. Like, look at you, I broke you.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay. So I used to make these. Oh my God. I can't believe we've never spoken
I
about
don't think
this
I've
before.
spoken to anyone about that. It's
Oh
such a
my
random,
God.
weird little piece of childhood.
I used to make these tissue dolls, which were like one tissue scrunched up with another tissue over the top and then like tied together and draw faces on them. And Mum, like, I don't really remember. I don't think I remember this. I feel like I do because I've had the story told back to me so many times. But Mum said, like, you would be sitting like crying in like piles of tissues because you've been doing this over and over again. It's like they all looked exactly the same. Yeah. But till you got the one that was like, like it's perfect, and then you would be happy. But it was that thing of like, oh no. And I remember it wasn't like a perfectionism thing of like, oh, like I'm so shit. It was exactly this feeling like, no, you're not like, I'm not bringing you to life in the way you deserve.
Exactly. I felt like apology. I was like, I had this responsibility and I'd fucked it. And I was like, I am so sorry. I'm like, but also like not tissues, but paper, and like crying and just being like, but I can't throw them away because I can't punish them for the fact that like I fucked up. Like, no, it's okay. It's okay. I just have the piles. Like I would lose my mind if anyone tried to throw away anything that I'd drawn. And we just used to have these, my parents would both go to work and bring all the waste paper from like the photocopy machine. So we just draw on the back of it.
Same.
Piles and piles of these. And I was like, no, I'm so sorry. Like I should have done better. I should have drawn it better or made it better. And now,
Oh, this is so validating.
It's such a weird, this is kind of how I felt when I discovered that ASMR was a thing that other people also felt, where it was like a thing you've never spoken about. And it's not because you're ashamed of it, but it's just never come up in conversation.
Sure.
And then suddenly you're like, oh my God, that's a shared experience.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh my God. Yeah. So I don't know what again, it's like just a thought that I literally had last night about this thing, but it's like that. If I was to think of like me at my happiest, that is a feeling that I would love to be able to recreate for myself.
Do you think
regularly.
that feeling is around flow state? Because for me, I feel like those I was so in flow, like just losing hours, or people would speak, you don't even hear noises around you because you're so immersed in the thing you're making. Because I would be I feel like I'd be scared to go back to a time where I felt so invested in the drawing itself, because that has its other flip side as well. That has the side of like crying over piles and piles, because like nothing's ever quite the thing. Or
yes, but so interestingly, like I have the feeling that it's not drawing, like where I'm going to find this isn't in drawing.
I think that's actually where I was kind of going with that.
So the flow state thing is part of it, but no, I think it's the feeling of like, I can't think of any other way to phrase it other than creating worlds. It's like making magic. I don't think that is necessarily going to be in drawing. Might be, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Stay tuned.
I do wonder, and I hope I'm wrong about this, but like I do wonder if that's maybe part of where people find magic and meaning with having kids, is like maybe that is a way.
Oh God!
I know. I'm sorry, I don't want to be that guy, but like because it gives you. I think about times where I've been like with my friend Sana's child Aaron, telling him a story, and like those are moments where I've kind of managed to drop into that. Actually, can I tell you about a thing?
Of course.
Like I did drop into this other day. This is such a random moment. It was so beautiful. I was with Tom, and I was just scratching his back, and he was just kind of like dozing off and whatever. And for whatever reason, I just started pretending that I was like cooking. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna put the pot over there, then we're gonna chop the carrots, I'm gonna put the carrots across. Like I felt like a kid, and I was like, there was literally a moment where I was like, what the fuck am I doing? It was so fun. I mean, like for him, it's like he's just getting like a back scratch, but I was like narrating it. Like this was not just in my head. He was getting like the whole okay, and then the pot goes there, and then we gotta go to the pantry and get some basil.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
And I think
it's
you've
play.
actually, it's play, but it's imagination. Like that's the real key to it, isn't it? Is like you can be, I think I do spend a lot of time being creative, whatever you want that to mean, as in like making new things, thinking of new ideas. But that is related to, but not the same as imagination.
Yes.
And I think maybe that is the little bit of magic that I've been missing in my life. And absolutely, I think, that would come with having kids. That's not an investment I'm prepared to make.
It doesn't have to, but I think that's probably
definitely.
It's almost like a forcing function of like it'll bring that in without you noticing it. But if you don't have kids, then it's like you just have to be intentional around seeking it and making it again.
Well, like lots of things, if you choose not to have children, or you can't have children, or you don't have children for whatever reason, that's probably a side of it I hadn't considered. I'd considered recently the things of like, okay, well then how do you create your own traditions? We've spoken about this on the podcast a bit before. Like, what does the rest of your life look like if you don't have the milestones that come with having children? Because, for me personally, like feeling like a need for some sort of structure, not just because, you have like birth, school, kinder school, high school, uni or not, work, meet the love of your life, marriage. And then if you have kids and it's like kid, then they go through the whole thing again. But if you don't, then it's like that bit and then like question mark.
Yeah.
Forever. Which is very intimidating. I mean, it's also incredibly liberating and exciting, but it's also like you do have to be a bit more intentional around the structures that you put in there. This is a side of it I don't think I'd considered before, is that if you don't get that that automatic's probably not being fair necessarily, but that you get that opportunity to connect back into imagination and play as part of bringing up kids. Like I remember my parents talking about like how fun and magic it was to create, like the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus and whatever, and all of those things that were making magic. It made it for them as well. So then if you don't have kids, then how do you continue to find and make magic for yourself and for other people?
Exactly. And I mean, I remember experiencing this when I went to uni after school, and my first year of the first degree was in humanities and literature and philosophy. And halfway through the year, I was like, why do I feel crazy? Like my hands feel weird. And it was because I'd been clean for 6 months. Like I hadn't drawn or painted anything. And it was because I had never needed to intentionally build that into my life before. It had just always been there.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was like I'd never had to make effort for art. And then suddenly not having it, you do. And it just sometimes the default structure of your life is giving you a thing and you don't appreciate that, it's cool. You can change the shape of it. But then sometimes you have to be the person who's like, all right, well, I guess I need to now be like, the rules are 2 hours a week or 1 hour a day or whatever it is you need to like carve out. Also, side note, but it was really funny explaining, this is again, my son is child Aaron, who's amazing, but he went through a phase where I had to explain to him like that imagination is basically lying. Like getting to that point where he's like, we'd get to stories and he was learning that like what it means at some story, like when they're really young, everything you say is true. And then he's starting to understand, no, there's this other world with like, that the concept of dragon, like a dragon is a thing, but a dragon is not a real thing. But like, how actually do you explain that? No, it's like there are no dragons, but like there's stories with dragons, but where are they? They're nowhere. Okay, so they're like a lie.
Yeah, fuck, that's so interesting. But also like, every like kids book and bit of fiction or whatever about giant dogs or whatever. Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, or when he's like,
being a parent sounds real hard.
Hot take from Jessamy G. Whoa.
I don't know if you guys had heard.
Guys.
Controversial. Yeah, it's fascinating. We because it was Dan's birthday on Friday and his brother dropped around very briefly with our nephew. So he's got two brothers. Both of them have little boys about a year apart. And so Alfie is just one and a bit, I think. And they're so different, the two boys, and both quite like their dads, which is cute, personality-wise. And so Josh is really like he wants to be included, he wants to be part of it, like, you know, kind of like quite sensitive. He's gorgeous. I'm a big fan of both of these kids. As someone who doesn't love children, these two, A+. They're great. And then Alfie, and he is obviously very little, like, you know, one, he's only just started walking and stuff. So he's not, you know, he's got a couple of, like, he can say like koala and mum and dad and kangaroo because they live in Daylesford. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it just struck me like how much of his personality you can see already, and this like very sort of like chill independence. Like they got there. They were only, because of timing and we had to go out for dinner and stuff, they were here for maybe 15 minutes or something. So it was a very quick visit. And after maybe 5 minutes, Alfie just started going, bye.
I'm done.
And then like pouring at the door, like, bye. But he wasn't like upset or crying or anything. He was just like, I've decided, bye.
That's amazing.
Like, I like this kid.
Fuck, that's great.
And then when I was saying goodbye to him, so James was holding him and I was like, bye, Alfie, bye, sweetie, and sort of like put my like hand out to his arm, and he just took his little hand and moved my hand away. I was like, all right, boundaries,
cool.
noted,
Yeah.
got it, buddy, no worries, no worries.
It's the classic, I love that. It's the classic, like, it stings your ego for 2 seconds when it happens, and then you just love the person even more because you're like, thank you. I now know that you'll never be with me if you don't want to be with me. Totally. You'll never do anything you don't want to do. I can just feel emotionally safe knowing that if you're here, you're happy.
Yeah.
What a gift.
Yeah.
Love that. Bye. I was chatting to a friend of mine, James, this week, and he said this thing that I thought was really interesting around learning new skills and being an adult and a kid and whatever, to kind of overlay. I feel like our kind of two threads of conversation are happening. But he said this thing about how people as adults are always really lazy about learning stuff, and we blame the fact that we didn't learn when we were younger because we're attributing this magical learning state to kids. Like, oh, kids are magical learners and it's not hard for kids to learn, and they just learn stuff and it's easy for them but it's hard for us, so I'm not going to start learning Spanish kind of thing. Yeah. And he was like, it's not actually true. Like, when you're a kid, you just have way lower expectations on the speed of learning. Yeah. So think about how long actually you did the same thing again and again. Or I think the example actually it was again bouldering yesterday, but how you do 1 or 2 runs, and if you're not getting better, you're mad at yourself for not getting better quicker. Instead of just going and doing the same ones you've done again and again, because that feels like stagnation or lack of progress. But then you think about being a kid and how many of the exact same loop of your driveway you did on your bike. Like hundreds, right? Like, you're not learning stuff necessarily faster, but you're just fine with like being bad at stuff for longer. Yeah.
I wonder as well, because you're like, I mean, the bike example is probably a bit different, but in terms of like school, like you don't, like an element of choice is taken away from it. You're like, okay, I'm here for 12 years. I just like, that's it. Like, so it'll just, you know, and next year I'll still be here. Like, I do remember that feeling suffocating. Yeah. Yes, full circle. But also it's like everyone is learning. Like, I think as adults, there's no, like, you don't know what people are and aren't trying to learn, and they could be at any level. Whereas when you're kids, like, obviously there's room to move within that. Kids will still learn at different levels, but you're learning-ish the same stuff, and there is an expectation you're all there as learners. You are all literally students.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never thought of it like that. Like that's just a given versus, yeah, I mean, it can be quite lonely, I suppose, isn't it? Like you do have to drive the whole thing yourself if you're not part of a community. Or I suppose that's why, I mean, I guess that's why stuff like even with your CrossFit, like you're recreating that little mini community, that little pocket of like a team who are on a journey together. And
oh, I love to think of my gym as CrossFit school rather than a gym. That's adorable.
Can I tell you about the wedding that I went to last weekend? It was amazing. It was amazing on so many levels. But the part that I wanted to tell you about, because I think you'd appreciate it, it was so fucking cute. So it was amazing. It was this huge vineyard venue, and there was sort of everyone stayed over for 3 nights. There was just this kind of feeling of community there over time. And as it was part of the wedding was that the bride and groom, Jam and Beck, who's a podcast listener, hello Beck, love you. Your wedding was amazing. But they both met and connected. Kind of like pop punk is a big theme for them, and their wedding is something that's really important in their lives. And so as a surprise for them, like a whole group of friends practiced, learnt and played and sang these 2 Blink-182 songs.
Stop it.
So cute, which takes so much longer than you would think, because you look at exactly. You're like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I got it.
That would be like one evening of a few drinks. It's really not, especially because you realize not everyone grew up listening to Blink. So for a lot of people in that group, they're like, what is this? It's the first time I've heard, first date, and they've got to learn it. But it had this beautiful kind of like almost like a choir feeling, because there was the four guys playing instruments and then the rest of us kind of singing. It was messy as fuck, I'll be honest, but it was so cute, and there was so much love. So that happened on the actual wedding as like a little surprise, and that was beautiful in its own moment. But then the next night, because now all the instruments are there, it's the Sunday night, everyone stayed at the venue. You've got that beautiful lull of now like all the pressure's off, all the like kind of the fuss that surrounds that big celebration has now died down. And you just have these beautiful kind of after effects. So you've got a group of friends who are kind of tired and hungover, but feeling full of love and celebration. You've got some instruments. And what ended up just organically happening was this big group of maybe about 20 of us in this room together. They brought the instruments in. They brought all the candles from the night before, turned off the lights, and there was just candles everywhere, instruments, people just jamming, taking, if someone would get up, play guitar, someone on the drums, playing little bits of songs that people have picked up over the years, people who know the songs, just standing up in front of everyone and like singing. Some people can sing beautifully, some of us can't, but just it didn't matter. And it was just making music with humans in a like so simple, and like a glass of red wine, and just the most magical moment. And I had this moment of being like, this is, if I could have wished for any life, like this is it.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was completely just a magical thing. And there's no moral to that story. There's no point other than it was just a beautiful accidental thing that emerged, and it was very special.
That's so gorgeous. I love those things. And that's the thing, you can't, if you tried to recreate that, you'd fail.
And if we'd planned it, it would have felt completely different as well.
Yeah. Just got to enjoy it and acknowledge it for the magic, the world that you create, if you will.
Look at that elegance.
I'm going to try. Since I've got my new glasses, my favorite trick has been, the one where you like put your hands behind your ears.
Like that.
And so it looks like you're raising your eyebrows, because I am indeed a fucking 50-year-old man. That is my sense of humor. But I just tried to do that. I'm like, oh no, I've got headphones on. I can't.
Thwarted by your own gear.
We should probably wrap up, I guess. I honestly feel like it has been forever since we've just sat down and done this together with us. So I hope, dear listeners, you enjoyed it as much as we have.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of additional stuff going on recently, which has been so fucking exciting, and we've had the best time. But also, I think it's so great to kind of return to our roots, which is just us talking shit about our feelings.
I know. Yeah, I feel the same. It's really, I felt like I'd forgotten how to do it. We were like talking the whole time we were setting up, and then the classic thing happened of the second we hit record. I'm like, well, I got nothing, bro. What's happened? Nothing. I don't have thoughts. I don't have feelings. And then the other classic is going to be that we're going to stop recording and be like, oh my God, and here's another thing also. Guys, you just have to trust that the conversation after we stop recording is incredibly deep, insightful, intellectual. I wish you could hear it.
And you'll never know. You'll never know. But this is
what we've got. Thank you for everyone who's been listening and following along and engaging on socials, as they say, and through the newsletter, and just being along for the ride.
Yeah.
The best.
Oh, and before we wrap up, a couple of things. So we do have, on the theme of exciting extra things happening, as some of you may know, a couple of weeks ago. Fuck, I've totally lost control of
Doesn't matter.
time. It doesn't matter. You're right. We did a live podcast recording with Ellen Porteous for her artist talk. Her show was so incredible. It's just finished up now. It's sold out. But we will release that as a bonus episode this Thursday. It's super, super interesting. Her work is incredible. So a little bit of bonus for you. We decided to make it a bonus episode because obviously as a live recording, it actually ended up sounding pretty good, but it's not, as high a quality as you've come to expect from the Imposter Syndrome Club, darling. And we're also aware there's been a lot of sort of additional stuff on at the moment. So we thought we would give that to you as a little bonus prezi on Thursday this week. And the other exciting thing is that we have booked in our live show for our first birthday.
Yes!
Woo-woo!
So exciting.
So exciting. So that's going to be on Friday, the 26th of May, the weekend after I either have or haven't run a marathon. We'll see.
We'll be unpacking that live for sure.
If Alice piggybacks me in, you'll know why. But that's going to be at Ringo Bar in Brunswick. It is, so I came across this place earlier this year, I think, or at the end of last year. It's so fucking cool. So it's a little record store / bar. The people who run it are just so gorgeous and amazing, and we've got a few little surprise tricks up our sleeve, and it's going to be super fun. But because the venue itself is small, the tickets are super limited, so they're actually close to halfway sold already.
Really?
Yeah, girl. I know. Maybe people like
what if people don't come to our birthday party?
They're totally going to our birthday party. So if you are in Melbourne, or you're going to be in Melbourne that weekend, Friday the 26th of May, there's a link in our Where's our link? I know Instagram's probably the easiest.
It'll be fine. People are smart. They'll find it.
I was about to say link in bio, then I realized I'm not a living Instagram. But there is a link in bio on Instagram. I don't think I've actually put it on our website yet, but I will do that, impostersyndromeclub.com. That's going to be super fun, and we're going to have a few live guests, but I think the thing that both of us are most excited about is just to get the chance to hang out with you guys and have a drink and a laugh and do it all face to face, which will be awesome.
Yeah, this makes my heart so happy. So thank you, Jess. Thank you, everyone. It's always the best part of my week.
Yeah, love you, Alice Edie.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. Clawing at the door.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Imposter Syndrome Club. Please follow us wherever you find your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra kind, rate and review. Or if you got any insights or value from this, share with a friend.
You can also find us on Instagram at imposterpod or online at impostersyndromeclub.com.